There it is. Continue. Okay.
San Diego Mountain Biking Association, welcome to part 3 of our podcast about Black Mountain Trail development. I'm Susie Murphy, Executive Director of the San Diego Mountain Biking Association, here with Matt Bartelt. Hi, Matt.
Hello, Susie.
Matt is the Vice President of our board and also our liaison to Black Mountain. We have had a lot of fun in the past 2 episodes talking about how trails are developed at Black Mountain Open Space Park, which is managed by the City of San Diego. Those episodes are available on our SDMBA YouTube channel. So if you haven't heard those yet, I suggest you go back so you can hear the whole story. Matt's had some fun stories to share, and we are really proud of what's been happening at Black Mountain, and there's more to come, and so we're going to talk about that now. So Matt, we kind of talked about in the other episodes about how trails were first proposed there, how SDMBA helped do that with the city, talked about Awi Trail and Lilac, and then East Ridge Trails, and that's going to bring us now to Black Widow. And so can you kind of tell us about how the discussion about the Black Widow Trail started with the City of San Diego staff?
Yeah, so Black Widow was a matter of leftovers. What happened was when you have to build a trail, the trail is planned around the total disturbance, and the city measures everything typically in linear footages or acreages, and they're basing the trail path on a 10-foot wide estimate when they're building the trail. Well, we kept both the Manzanita Trail complex and the Lilac Trail well under that. So we had all sorts of extra acreage that were unused under the mitigation plan at Black Mountain, which was already paid for. And so we were able to actually utilize that. We had a conversation with Senior Ranger Ed Christensen about utilizing that, and he really liked the idea of putting a trail on the western slope. On that western side, there's a scar that goes straight up the mountain. It's been on that mountain for decades. It's a direct ascent to the top of the mountain. It was originally an old Jeep trail and has long been adopted as a social trail, even though it was unauthorized. The problem with that trail is because it's so steep, it was continually eroding. It got wider over years and it got worse. It's seen a lot of injuries because of hikers going up and down, slips, broken ankles, broken wrists, different things like that. So we started looking at how we could improve that trail for all users, add length to it, and reduce the grade from the 20% plus that it was, and then also add a lot of interest for users, both riders and hikers. We knew that there was going to be a lot of interest in the trail because there were few legal trails like it that were legal in San Diego. And the issue was, how do you make a trail that's going to be heavily used by bikes and hold up so that it's going to minimize the labor needed for maintenance? One of the things we did early on was sit down with one of the senior biologists of the city, and we looked through what we could do. And she was actually able to point to places in a manual within the city of San Diego that talked about the ability to armor trails. And this was the impetus to get the whole process started. And the whole thing, it took a long time, but we worked with city planners, and about a year later, we were able to receive the approval. And all the planning was crazy. We had to go through and walk through this multiple times, had to stick inside of a specific corridor. And once again, we find ourselves in, waist high, shoulder high chaparral that's poking and ripping us apart. So we're out there with GPSs and measuring tape and making sure everything was working. This time we were really careful to make sure we put in good radiuses on the corners, found intentional rock croppings for actual additional features. And I swear we must have hiked that alignment for 15 different times just to get the initial. And once we got there, it was great. And this was the whole development of the upper piece. The bottom was a little bit easier because that was quite the chunk of social trail that was there. And we're able to adopt probably 90% of that and make just a couple subtle changes to the exit. And in the end, we took a trail that was maybe 2/3 of a mile long and turned it into nearly 1 2/3 trail.
Awesome. So as usual, we find out that the planning actually, of course, takes as much work, if not more, than the actual getting the shovels in the ground. I was lucky enough to be present at a lot of the trail work days for Black Widow. We had some days with really good conditions, and I know that we went through lots of pizza and lots of burritos and some beer from our sponsors like Sierra Nevada. So can you tell us a little bit more about the construction of the actual Black Widow Trail?
Oh, you know, it was a perfect confluence of events. I mean, we had a really good building season, and it was huge because of three really important factors. I mean, first of all, San Diego and weather. You can't build trail without weather, and this just happened to be an extremely wet year when we started. So the soil conditions were really ideal. And if you've ever tried working with San Diego soil when it's dry, you know exactly the things that we were concerned with. The other thing was we're able to generate a huge groundswell of volunteer support. On our first day, after we got everything mapped out, we actually had our first build day. We had over, I think, 60 volunteers show up. And the really nice part about that is that entire trail was brushed. In other words, the corridors were cleared and cleaned up in the first day. Now, it still took a lot of work, but I mean, one day to get that done was unheard of in what some of the other events that we've done so far. And then, of course, the third crucial piece of that puzzle was the mechanization. Between the ranger bringing out his Swaco bulldozer, which helped us cut part of the trail, as well as we were able to secure, as SDMBA, the purchase of a motorized wheelbarrow, which is basically a small box tank. It was a wonderful addition. And then we also had staff who were trained in the use of a mini excavator. And that turned out to be a huge help because the amount of soil and rock we're able to move with those three different pieces of mechanization couldn't have happened in the first year. If we didn't have that, it would have taken far longer. So we were really, really lucky to have all of that.
Right. And so this picture here shows the little Swaco machine that's owned by the city, the little yellow one. So that was a big help. And then having the volunteers able to hand finish behind something like that is really makes the work go a lot faster. So that's great. And then can you kind of tell us what was the biggest challenge on a trail of this type? I know I don't remember exactly how many turns are in it, but there's a lot. You probably know them by heart. But kind of tell us the challenges of a trail of this type.
Oh, each turn has a number. Yeah. The biggest challenge here for us is looking at what the traffic flow is going to be. One of the requests was that the hikers still use it, and that's fine. But knowing that the majority of the bike traffic will be heading downhill, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand what the wear is going to be on the trail. And if you think about it, corners are probably going to take the biggest impact. So we modeled some of the paver turns after what was done elsewhere, but we had a lot of limitations we had to work around. First off, we had to keep the turns broad. So I mean, we had 17 to 20 foot radiuses, but we had to be careful that the trail footprint was not too wide. Realistically, they were just two pavers wide, and each paver is about 24 inches. So your turns were in the neighborhood of 48 inches wide. And the thing was, getting those pavers on the hill took all hand work. Each one had to be hiked in. They were about 60 pounds. And once you got each paver to the corner, and understand that each corner would take in the neighborhood of 70 to 100 pavers, you had to hand place them. And that soil was a mess. It's rocky, it's tough, and we had to work really hard to make sure the pavers were laid just right. For example, on all of the turns, the inside paver of the turn had to be flat relative to the slope of the turn, because it was going to be one for hikers, so they had a place to go, and two, if there was a climbing turn, this would be rideable. The outer part of the slope, the outslope, couldn't be a whole lot. It had to be between 20 and 30 degrees, so it couldn't be this radical, super sharp, steep turn. But in the end, you know, we kept it consistent and it worked. And what we really discovered was there was no way any one turn could be done in one session. Each of those turns, you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 sessions before they were done. The other thing that we had to work with, I mean, besides just the pavers, was there is one section up towards the top, affectionately known as Turn 3, that is a rock fall line. We purposely found some rock outcroppings and tried to utilize those, but even then it was exceptionally steep. So we took a full 2 years to build that out. The first season, we had to move in about 3 tons worth of rock harvested from various parts in the mountain, use the wheelbarrow, a lot of handwork and moving them in. And basically we wanted to create a very nice, rollable, but exciting feature, and we were able to do that. Knowing full well, though, that not everybody was going to be comfortable with that, we intentionally created a beeline, but we weren't sure what the wear and tear was going to be on that. So we left it raw for the first year. And then in the second year, we came back in and added some pavers to it to fortify the sections where the people were going through. And in the end, even though it's a fall line, that's a feature that's going to hold up to the wear and tear. So it's really nice. So, think about everything that goes. This isn't just a project of volunteers. We couldn't have done this. Those pavers, the mechanization, all of this was a huge deal. And it was our sponsors that helped bring this in. So, I mean, we had people like Trek Superstores and other sponsors that helped raise probably over $10,000 to help purchase those pavers and all the equipment, the support. We had swag, everything. So it was a wonderful experience for everybody.
Terrific. And so it's interesting, that kind of adaptive trail design where you kind of let people write it in and see how the natural lines fall, whether it's an A line or a B line, is really an interesting way to do it. And I think a best practice nowadays to kind of see where the riders and hikers naturally go. I've heard it said on turns like this, if you spend 20 minutes making a turn, that's probably about how long it's going to last. And we know that these were hours and hours and hours of planning and actual work. So we know that they're going to last for a really long time. So what is the status of Black Widow Trail right now?
Yeah. So Black Widow's pretty much done. There's 1 or 2 small things that we need to go and fix before it's officially completed, but it is definitely in what's considered a soft open status. We're going to go through, get those last couple of things repaired, or actually just changed, and it won't be a big deal either if they're changed now or at a later date. What we really want is to have an official grand opening. Unfortunately, conditions as they are with the coronavirus pandemic, we haven't been real lucky to be able to get groups together. But be assured, once this passes and we are able to have a social gathering, we're going to have one heck of a celebration out there, because this was a long time coming. It'd be a ride and a party at the base of the mountain there, and we're going to have a really good time doing that. Looking forward to that point.
Yes, we will. We are planning that now, and I hope it happens sooner rather than later, but we'll keep everybody posted on that. So now that is almost there, we wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsors. So Trek Superstores and the individuals that donated to raise the money for the materials and things needed here are awesome. And like I said, we had pizza, we had burritos, we had Cliff Bars, Sierra Nevada, all the swag from our local sponsors, Zoic and Poway Bicycles, and you name it. It's so fun for people to be able to walk away with a little prize or a souvenir from their day. So we appreciate everybody and their support for helping us with those goodies. And so I'm going to turn to this other map here now. And so can you tell us what other development projects are in the works for Black Mountain and the surrounding area to kind of help the connectivity and all of that to make it even better than it is now?
Sure. The one thing you always want to make sure, understanding the length of time that it takes to plan anything, you want to have multiple irons in the fire. One of the ones that we're working on right now, you're seeing on the map there, is the Lasardi Connector Trail Complex through a community that's called the Estates. And what that is, there was long ago a connector that was severed when this community was put in, and we're looking to reestablish it. The Black Mountain Community Master Plan actually calls for these trails. And so we're working with the city right now. We've gone through the first round. Don't have an ETA as far as shovel in the ground, but we have good support and we're working towards that. It requires some additional paperwork and planning and a couple environmental studies, but from everything that we're looking at so far, it's looking very favorable. If we're lucky, we can get this next year, but we will see where that goes. The other thing that we're looking at, think of Black Mountain from a connectivity standpoint. You can reach it from the west side and you can reach it from the south side, but access from both the east side and the north side does not exist currently. The map that you're seeing now, if you're looking at the north, or I guess the top right corner, you're going to see a yellow trail there. That trail is an extension of the Manzanita Loop. It does not exist yet, but we're working to get that into the next part of the master plan. And this is going to drop down into the communities that are been installed in the valleys to the north of Black Mountain. So that'll have a northern connection. And then one other one that you're not seeing on this map, and we forgot to put it in here, is on the east side is Los Penasquitos Elementary School. And there's a street over there called Cuca Street. And in the city's plan, there is a connector that's coming from that side up the east side of the mountain and hooking into Manzanita. They want to do a original plan called for a nearly straight up the hill approach. And we've talked them away from that to make it a more reasonable approach, but there's still a couple more studies and has to make it again into that master plan revision. As far as a couple other things that are out there, just so you know, north of Black Mountain is the Lasardi Canyon. And right now, most of the Lasardi Canyon is a fire road or service road through the base. And we're looking to get, we're working with Ed, the ranger there, to get the Lasardi land management plan in place to separate that from Black Mountain, because most of the land in there was agricultural. And by doing that, that's going to give us the ability to look at reconfiguring some of the trail in there, including taking care of the wicked fire road hills on the far west side of the Lasardi track, put in some single track there, and a few other options for single track. So it's all sorts of options that are out there. Some of the things exist, like Doug Hill. A lot of you have ridden that. That's the extension or the extra credit after you leave the Black Mountain aid station if you were riding the ARC. It's a trail that runs along the ridge. It's rather rocky and technical, and a lot of people love that. It isn't under any management plan, so we want to make sure that that is included. Again, Ed is very aware of that. We're all working towards that. So those are all the sort of things. Other options, more futuristic and not a guarantee, is the possibility of a bike skills park on the backside of the ball fields. There's a large open space there, but there's a lot that has to go through that. So I can't even say that that's a possibility at this point, but these are all things that we're always working towards. So those are just a few of the things that are going on.
That sounds like job security to me. Seems great. So with Black Mountain in general, seeing as that this is our last part 3 of this series, what kind of lessons did you learn? Like, what was the greatest success or the biggest disappointment? What would you do differently when we have opportunities for this kind of large scale, long-term project again? Do you have any things to share?
Biggest lessons is a big lesson in patience. I don't care what you think or what they tell you how fast the process is going to go. It's going to take twice as long as that. Building a trail is a piece of cake. The planning, the logistics, the environmental studies, all of it that goes in just takes forever. So it's all about perseverance and patience. Success, well, let's put it where it is. There's 6 miles of single track up there that didn't exist before. So we've turned this into a really popular outdoor recreation area for a lot of different users. Biggest disappointment, the continual infighting that goes on. Everybody has an opinion. Just understanding that you can't please everyone, but I tell you, it just drives me nuts that the criticism you get, no matter what happens, it wasn't done right to somebody's expectation. So you just learn to take that with a grain of salt. I mean, I have to look at it as it was better than when we started, and that's where it's going to be. And then,
Absolutely.
What would I do again? Oh, you know what? How would I change it? I couldn't possibly tell you how I could change it. I think it was a fantastic experience for the last 6 years that we've been working on this. I loved every minute of it. Think about it. I mean, the adventure that it was, tromping through the bushes, not knowing what you're going to find, the camaraderie, because I've met a lot of people I didn't know. I think it's really brought a lot of the community together. And then all those relationships that I built through the process, and it's just not me, it's the relationships everybody's built with each other. It's been a huge thing. For me, it's going to be a lifetime experience. I am thrilled to death with how it turned out. And I really hope these trails, I mean, they're legal trails, and I want to make sure that they stay there for well past my lifetime. And so other people can enjoy them.
Yep, for sure. Well, thanks for all of that. And that's, I'm sure, a lot of news for future planning that people may not have known about. So I hope that people are interested in that. If you have other questions, you can always reach out to us and just let us know your thoughts, or we can try to answer your questions. I wanted to kind of address, as we work through the strangeness that is 2020, and I've had a lot of questions of people asking me what the status is of volunteer work. As you know, there's a lot of restrictions on a lot of things, and while a lot of things are opening up, we're still have restrictions in place as far as getting large groups of people together. So we have had a few land managers that are allowing us to have small groups, like groups of 2 or 3 experienced volunteers who are experienced in an area and know exactly what needs to be done, that have been getting out to do some work in the last month or so, some tree clearing and trimming up on Upper Noble. We had a trimming group out at La Costa in early May before La Costa opened up, so that was really helpful. And we continue to communicate with the other agencies, the city and the county, to as they work through their reopening plans of when we can have larger groups out. Of course, you have to understand that we're working our way into summer, and summertime generally is not a great trail work season for the reasons previously mentioned. It's too dry, it's too hot, we don't want to kill our volunteers. So generally most of our trail work happens between, I would say, October and May anyway. And summertime is our time to prioritize as land managers, to plan for future work, to walk alignments, that kind of stuff. So we're hoping that as we get into the later summer and the fall, we'll understand more of how we're recovering from this current situation. And then hopefully when October rolls around and we get some moisture in the ground, we can start to get back to normal volunteer work days. Because I've sure had a lot of people reaching out and say, how can I help? And so I'm just, just stay posted, and we will definitely need help when things get back to normal. So Matt, anything else you want to add since this is our last little talk about Black Mountain?
Oh, it's maybe the last talk, but this is not going to be the last work.
No.
We've got plenty coming.
Excellent. So thanks for joining us for these 3 episodes. Like I said, if you missed the part 1 and part 2, they're on our SDMBA YouTube channel. And we're working with some other partners and interesting personalities to bring you more stories of how SDMBA works to improve trail access for mountain biking in San Diego. So stay tuned for those. And while we can't meet in person, hopefully, we'll keep these little podcast videos, and there'll be something we can look back on and use for future education and just information for people. So again, we appreciate you listening, and we appreciate your support. If you're a member, we thank you very much for that. If you're not a member, it's only $39 a year, and you can join at sdmba.com. Little join button right at the top. It's super easy, right, Matt?
Yes, it is.
So we use all that membership money through the years for everything that we do, the equipment, the pizza, the burritos, all that stuff. So we appreciate everyone's support, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.